What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Slacks YouTube channel. It is February 19th. It is also BlizzCon Online today, so be prepared for lots of interesting Hearthstone news in my upcoming YouTube videos. But before then, we're going to be going over the Q&A seminar that was done by senior game designer Ixar. There was a lot of very interesting questions, and it definitely had a lot of notable topics for this year of Hearthstone. For this Q&A section, I'll be going through Stonekeeper's article on HearthstoneToptics.com, through which he writes down the notable questions that were brought up in Ixar's Twitter thread. All right, so as you can see, we are on the HearthstoneToptics.com article written by Stonekeep, and it states, Dean Ixar Ayala's Twitter Q&A, February 17th, 2021, roundup of all answers, best of 3 and other formats, starting experience, revamp, Shadow Priest, and more focus on cosmetics. I'll also have Stonekeep and this article in the description down below. All right, so it starts off saying, weekly Dean Ixar Ayala's Q&A session on Twitter became a thing. He started them on January 13th and promised to do them every Wednesday. People have been asking lots of questions about the game's balance, design, specific cards, mechanics, and so on. Sadly, Twitter is kind of a mess when it comes to such things. Messages are short. You have to create long threads if you want to talk about something in detail. Lots of comments get hidden and just doesn't flow right. I 100% agree. To make it a bit easier for you all, just like the previous weeks, I went through all of his replies and decided to make a quick summary of the most important talking points. To continue, that said, if you want to read the full Q&A, all the questions and answers, here's the tweet you should go to. I did see this tweet. I saw Solom and Zeddy, whom I follow. They were commenting on this, but I'm going to be going through the questions specifically in this article. All right, so just like always, my summary is pretty long for a quote-unquote summary, but Dean always answers a lot of questions. Of course, I didn't cover everything. Instead, I try to focus on the more interesting / important stuff. I also try not to repeat points that have been already discussed in his recent Q&As, so if you want to learn more, go back to them. And if you want to read his full replies on all topics, check out the tweet above. Stuff in parentheses are my own notes and not Dean's words. Let's start. I'll have his tweet in the description, so if there's any other questions that weren't answered in this video, you can go down and check them yourself. All right, so to continue, the first question. Dean likes the idea of best of 3s or playing to 2 wins instead of best of 1. If they ever implement a more competitive format, however, he thinks that sideboard is adding too much complexity for a little gain for an average player. I do really think the best of 3 format would make sense for competitive Hearthstone or people that play at a more competitive nature, such as Hearthstone Masters players or people that play in tournaments / leagues. But again, I do think that it's a little bit too complex, just the way that Hearthstone looks and feels and plays. I don't think it would make sense to add a best of 3 format. Theoretically, it makes sense for competitive wise, but realistically, as stated, it probably won't make sense for the game. All right, so I skimmed through the second question, which was he would like to try out the EDH Commander MTG format or a 4 players format in general, but 1v1 v1 v1 instead of 2v2. But obviously, UI is the biggest concern. As many know, I'm not a big Magic the Gathering player. I specifically focus on Hearthstone, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! But I will have the link to what a Commander format is in the description. So if you guys want to check it out and give your opinion on it, feel free to comment in the comment section down below. They're currently working on a revamp for starting experience example tutorial, but there's no release time for that yet. Most of the new players now go straight to Battlegrounds after tutorial, so it's just an unnecessary roadblock for them. Hearthstone, as it is now, a lot of the people now are playing Battlegrounds because of the fact that it is not very free to play. If you want to start Hearthstone from the beginning, if you haven't played back from 2014 or so on, it's very hard for people to get into Hearthstone and be good at the game because of the fact that there's a very large paywall. A lot of people are just going straight to Battlegrounds because it's free and because it's a little bit easier to learn. And I understand that. So this tutorial revamp makes sense to me. Next question. Since Shadow Form, your hero power becomes deal 2 damage if already in Shadow Form deal 3, is returning, we can expect more support for Shadow Priest archetypes. I'm not going to lie, I'm not a big Priest player. The only archetype I did play was Shadow Priest. So this is something more personally to me that I would appreciate. I think it makes sense. It allows a little bit more complex thinking for Priest players, and it's something that I like. Ideas of expansions based on old lore like Warcraft 1, 2, 3 come up all the time in brainstorming. Dean would like to make expansions based on first or second wars and explore all the cool stories and characters. I really like this. based off of what we saw in the Quill You Be Ready video that I also had done, they're kind of going back to areas that people understand more or might. We don't know. Obviously, today we will know what the next expansion is for Hearthstone. But I do like the fact that they would bring around a more nostalgic factor to Hearthstone and be a little bit less complex with how the game works around the expansions that they add. I like the fact that they would be bringing back old expansions that more old school players or more classic players would enjoy. So I think that's a really big factor into bringing back people that might play it just because of these old style mechanics or characters or cards into like the old Warcraft 1, 2, 3 days. So I like that. I think that's a good change. To continue, new card types are possible. Dean says that he loves Saga cards in Magic the Gathering, but he thinks that there needs to be a reason to add them. Saga cards. Saga is an enchantment type introduced in Dominaria. Each saga tells a story of a key event from the plane's past as it unfolds during each of your turns. That is very confusing. That is really... Right, so as you guys probably saw, I was very confused by what saga cards are. So I will not be including this question because, again, I don't really know what Magic the Gathering is. I don't really know how the game plays, how the board state is involved. I don't really understand it, so we're just going to bypass that question. Demon Hunter initially had an extra resource called Fury, but they dropped it because only certain cards / decks used it. He didn't like to have a UI for a separate resource that might not get used for months at a time, but he would like to re-explore it. I do like these new resources that they might add. I think it would make Hearthstone more interesting / allow, as he said, more archetypes or certain cards / decks to be used with it. I think once you put those cards out there, a lot of people experiment with them and they find really good decks. That's how decks are created now, right? And I think it would just make it a little bit more fun. So I think that would be a good idea for them to kind of re-explore stuff like that. Answering question about why Hearthstone doesn't focus on cosmetic monetization, which has proven to work. Dean replied that it's not that easy, and in fact, only the biggest games survive on cosmetic-only monetizations. Most of the games sell power level to support themselves. Example, gacha games, but they're still adding more cosmetics now than ever, and he would like them to focus on them even more. I don't really have a say or really care for cosmetic monetization. Look and feel on a game makes sense, but in my opinion, doesn't really make sense for Hearthstone. I could see it working. Obviously, people are going to pay to have cool things or make certain things look cool, such as like a TFT or such as like other games that use monetization in a very strong way. I don't really see Hearthstone growing with it, but I could see it working also. To continue, Rogue will get a new hero portrait in 2021. Finally, Rogue 1 is very old. I don't think they've had one even back when I stopped playing an Ungoro. So, Rogue players, have some fun. RNG in Hearthstone is truly random and not like some people suggest depending on your win rate. Dean said that they barely have time to develop the content, let alone run experiments to create artificial bad luck for any reason. Don't really know why that's a question. RNG has been in many, many games besides Hearthstone, so I couldn't really see why a win rate would allow you to have a better RNG. And if it did, not a lot of people would be playing the game. So, yeah. He doesn't think that scouting in Battlegrounds, being able to see the other people's board at any time, is good. It adds some strategy, but he doesn't think it would make the game more fun. He doesn't think that scouting in Battlegrounds is good. I think it would be good. I have to disagree with that one. I think it would be good because of the fact that I think I've only played Battlegrounds a handful of times, and I think one of the issues I noticed was that I was losing to the same person over and over and over, and I didn't really like that. I think it makes sense, such as in TFT, you can swap to see different boards of players that you're playing against, and you can see what they're building, so you don't build the same build that they are. So I actually don't like that. I think it would make sense for them to do it. I think the strategy concept would be kind of more like luck, to be honest, if in my opinion, again. So yeah, I don't really know where he comes from with that, but again, I'm not a senior game designer, so all right. Themes like dragons or dinosaurs that people love will definitely be back in the future. I like this. Don't really have anything to say about it. I just like it. I think it makes sense. People have seen those cards before, and Ungoro Crater for me was one of my favorite expansions that they added with a lot of dinosaurs, obviously. So I think that makes sense. I like that. Banned arena cards, those that can't be drafted, can still be discovered by different cards. They can change that, but don't think that there's a need. There's a difference between having strong, common cards in a drafting pool and being able to discover them from time to time. But if discovering some powerful card will be too consistent, they will consider removing it from the pool. I think that makes sense. They can't ban every card. They can't make every card that's good outside of the arena game. Obviously, arena kind of comes down to the draft when you get to pick your initial 30 cards. People obviously make it work, and I think that if they were to take out or ban certain arena cards, I think that would kind of hurt people that solely play arena. So I like the way that they are thinking with that. Some people have reported long queue times on 11-star bonus on the way to Legend, especially later into the month. Dean said that they'll look into it. It's good. If they're looking into it, there's not really much to say. Obviously, I'm not at 11 times star bonus. The highest I got to was 9. Highest I've been was Diamond 5. So, obviously, I haven't had that luck of having to wait in a queue, being almost Legend, but we continue on. He didn't expect animated broomstick, the rush battlecry give your other minions rush 1/1. To be this strong. He liked the card as a reactive play in minion-based decks, and as a way to play time 2 slow cards in control by giving them rush immediately. But it's coming up in balance meetings, and it might get nerfed if it starts showing up everywhere. Animated Broomstick is that card that a lot of people like to play later on in the game. You don't really see it often you don't see it too often at the beginning of play, obviously, right? Because of the fact that that rush and give your other minions rush allows you to hit your high health and high mana cards really fast or really hard. This is kind of the card that shows up later in the stage when you're playing those big drops and you're able to clear things on the board really fast. And it is very OP in my opinion. So it's good that they're taking a look into it. I mean, obviously, a competitive nature, everyone's going to complain about something. So something that's OP is obviously going to get looked at. They weren't completely surprised by Ramp Paladin, but it's better than they've expected. Lifesteal OTK Demon Hunter is in a good spot. It doesn't have a high win rate. It's not unbeatable at all, but players who play it enjoy it. So in regards to Ramp Paladin, I do like this deck. I think it is very good. It's fun. That's the reason why I like the deck. It's fun. I think the car synergy for Paladin decks makes sense for a ramp deck, and it's fun to play. It is stronger, but I don't necessarily think it's OP. We're not even going to get involved with Token Druid. I think that deck is insanely broken. But I do think Ramp Paladin is fun, and I like it. Lifesteal OTK Demon Hunter is in a good spot too. I haven't really seen it that much on ladder, so I'm not going to comment too much about that. I do think it's pretty good though, from the times that I have seen it. But yeah, we move on. Dean thinks that all classes should have access to draw, but not necessarily always have a full hand of resources. Example would be Hunter will always be strong in aggro/tempo strategies, but it won't have a lot of value or healing. This is the one thing that I did see on Twitter, and I 100% agree with this. I don't like the fact that some classes or some decks have everything. You could play aggro, you could play secret, you can play tempo, you can play spell damage, you can play everything. I don't like that. I like the fact that certain decks that you play are going to have certain strategies or incorporate only certain cards. Because again, I think when you have every class that is able to play every deck, it reduces the fun factor of the game, and it allows everybody to be able to play it. And I don't like that. I like the fact that, for example, Hunter is mainly aggro/tempo, mid-range-ish, but I like the fact that they're not just going to give Hunter another way of drawing cards, because then I think it would make it really, really broken. Designers often have interesting ideas, but they turn out to be too difficult to implement. Recently, they wanted a card that destroys your deck and transforms your hand into a vehicle that had 3 buttons that did some sweet things, being intentionally vague, but had to cut. Don't really know what that means. Seems kind of weird. Seems also kind of fun and very trolly. And I like that. Bring back the story button. Alright, so one of the weirdest card designs that came up was a battle cry that added 1 to all numbers on the cards. So 1 mana, increased 1 mana, 1 damage, health, and an effect. So Arcane Missiles will deal 4 damage for 2 mana, but Ethereal Og Merchant would be a 2 mana 3/2. The battle cry would deal 2 damage to a minion and give it spell damage +2. But it was weird, broken, and almost impossible to implement. That does seem like it would be very hard to implement. A lot of cards with the battle cries are just too strong, and I think that would make cards very, very OP. And last but not least, working from home has been quite difficult. Different designers have different needs. Some prefer to be in constant communication, others like to check in once and work by themselves. A lot of communication is lost when they aren't all in the office. That makes sense. I mean, with the COVID state that we're in, certain areas obviously are impacted greatly. Others aren't. For myself in Canada, it's dying down a little bit, but you can never be too safe here, I would say. Um, but yeah, a lot of people are different. A lot of designers, people in general, are just different. It's hard to work in a business like that where people are all um, working in their own ways, right? So I 100% understand where that would be coming from. That concludes today's Q&A video. Shout out again to Stonekeep for the amazing article done on Dean Ixar-Ayala's Twitter Q&A. I had a lot of fun with it. It was my first time doing it, and it was very interesting to see into the mind of a senior game developer and what he thinks about Hearthstone. As I've said many, many times, Hearthstone is in a really great place. It's only going to get better from here. Thanks again for watching. If you guys have any questions or concerns or thoughts about what I said in the video, make sure to post it in the comment section down below. Thank you guys again for watching and have a good one. Thank you. Please make sure to like and subscribe and click that notification bell to see all my upcoming Hearthstone videos. And before this video concludes, I just want to say shout out to my boy here for answering the real questions. Why isn't the sword emote back in Hearthstone?